It was just supposed to be a chill night. Josh and I had been best friends since freshman year of college. We'd done everything together: study sessions, late-night fast food runs, even our first and last attempt at making weed brownies. So when he invited me to crash at his place after a movie marathon, I didn't think twice. His dad's place was huge, like, divorced but still thriving rich. Modern kitchen, pool out back, wine fridge he wasn't supposed to touch but definitely did. I'd only met Mr. Bennett a couple of times before. He was handsome in a way older men sometimes are: salt and pepper hair, strong jaw, arms that said gym without screaming it. Charming. Polite. Off limits. We crashed around 2 a.m. Josh knocked out on the couch within minutes. I lay there longer, scrolling on my phone, mind buzzing with nothing in particular. The room was warm. I was thirsty. I slipped out from under the blanket and padded to the kitchen in my socks, careful not to wake him. The hallway was dark, lit only by the faint blue glow from the aquarium in the living room. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I'd been here enough to know my way around. As I opened the fridge to grab a bottle of water, I felt it. A hand on my waist. Then another. Gripping firmly. Not aggressively, but deliberately. Before I could react, a low voice, husky with sleep, murmured behind me. Yummy? My heart slammed against my ribs. I froze. What the? The hands lingered just a second too long before releasing. I spun around. There he was. Mr. Bennett. Bare-chested, low sweatpants hanging off his hips. Eyes widening as recognition dawned. Shit, he said. You're not. Nope, I cut in, stepping back fast. Definitely not. We stood there in frozen silence. I held the water bottle like it might protect me. I thought you were Damien, he said, voice cracking slightly. My partner. Usually he wears boxers like that. I looked down. Stupid cartoon print boxers. Of all nights. I didn't know what to say. My brain was still buffering. His face flushed. I'm so sorry. That was completely out of line. I nodded slowly, still trying to process what had just happened. I should have been furious. Part of me was. But there was something else, something unspoken hanging in the air between us. Embarrassment, yes. But also, tension. Electric. Unexpected. I'll go back to sleep, I said quickly, my voice higher than usual. He nodded, running a hand through his hair, suddenly looking 10 years younger and far more human. Again, I'm sorry. I didn't respond. I just turned and walked back to the living room, heart racing, bottle of water forgotten in my hand. Josh was still snoring on the couch, oblivious. I curled up next to him, eyes wide open, pulse refusing to slow down. That touch. That voice. That look on his face when he realized it was me. Sleep didn't come easy that night. And deep down I already knew. This wasn't the last time something like that would happen. I avoided him at breakfast. Josh was making terrible instant coffee in the kitchen while I picked at a stale toaster waffle like it might do something about the heat in my face. Mr. Bennett, Daniel, apparently, though I still thought of him as Mr. Bennett, was sitting across the room at the breakfast bar, scrolling through something on his phone and very obviously not looking at me. The tension in the air wasn't just thick, it was suffocating. He hadn't told Josh. I could tell. Josh was acting normal, going on about some new guy he matched with on a dating app, completely unaware that just hours ago, his dad had grabbed my waist and whispered yummy, like I was dessert. I was still trying to figure out how I felt about it. Violated? Not really. Confused? Definitely. The weirdest part, the part one hadn't even admitted to myself yet, was that I hadn't pulled away immediately. I'd frozen, yes, but not from fear. It was the way his hands had felt. Big, warm, confident. I hated that I remembered that. I hated more that I wanted to. After Josh left to go pick something up from the store, I started gathering my stuff to leave. I'd almost made it to the door when I heard his voice behind me. Can we talk? I turned around. He looked tired. No shirt, again just gym shorts. Probably intentional. I didn't like that, I noticed. There's nothing to talk about, I said. Come on, he said. 5 minutes. Please. I sighed and dropped my bag. We sat down in the living room across from each other. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, looking at me like a man trying to fix a mistake without knowing where to begin. I seriously thought you were Damien. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was half asleep. I shouldn't have touched you. No, you shouldn't have, I said, crossing my arms. He nodded, accepting that. I'm sorry. That should have been enough. But it didn't feel finished. So what? I asked. You sneak up behind your boyfriend and grab him in the dark? That a regular thing? He gave a crooked smile. Sometimes. Nice. I get it. You're pissed. I wasn't. That was the problem. I wanted to be. I wanted to walk out and never come back. But something about the way he was looking at me, not embarrassed anymore. Just honest. Open. You could have told Josh, I said. Let him know something happened. He tilted his head. You want me to? No. He laughed just once. Then what do you want? It was a dangerous question. I didn't answer. We sat in silence for a minute. The AC kicked on and I watched the curtain flutter, needing something to look at that wasn't him. I keep thinking about it, he said quietly. I blinked. What? That moment? In the kitchen. He was staring at me again. I hated how direct his gaze was. Like he was stripping me bare without moving a finger. Don't, I said, voice barely above a whisper. Why not? Because it was a mistake. Was it? I stood up. Too fast. My heart was hammering again just like last night. I should go. He stood 2 hands up. I won't stop you. I grabbed my bag. Walked to the door. Paused, hand on the handle. I didn't turn around when I said it. Maybe it wasn't a mistake. Then I walked out. The next few days were strange. Josh texted me memes like usual. I answered mostly. But I stayed away from his house. From his dad. From temptation. I tried distracting myself. Hit the gym. Watched dumb YouTube videos. Hooked up with a guy from an app just to prove to myself I still could. But I couldn't stop thinking about that hand. That voice. That question. Was it? I didn't know what I wanted. Not really. But I knew what I was curious about. I'd never been with someone older. Never crossed that kind of line. But I kept wondering what it would feel like to lean into it instead of running away. That's what scared me most. I kept expecting him to text. He didn't. I kind of hated that. But I knew I hadn't seen the last of him. And I knew deep down that part of me didn't want it to be over. I didn't plan on going back. I told myself I'd make excuses, say I was busy, fake a cold, whatever it took to avoid another night at Josh's. But plans, I've learned, don't hold up well against people who don't even know they're part of them. Josh invited me over the next weekend. My dad's grilling, he said you should come. Burgers, beer, backyard vibes. I stared at the text for 5 full minutes before typing, sure. I hated myself a little for it. Not because I didn't want to go, but because I did. When I showed up that Saturday, everything looked exactly the same. Same modern house, same smell of barbecue and cologne, same awkward flutter in my stomach the moment I stepped through the door. He was in the backyard, flipping burgers like nothing had ever happened between us. Hey, he said without looking up. Glad you made it. Yeah, I muttered. Josh said there'd be food. He finally turned and caught my eye. A flicker of something passed between us. Acknowledgement, memory, desire. Then it was gone, buried under the casual smile he always wore so well. We didn't talk much during dinner. Josh did most of the talking, bouncing between topics while Mr. Bennett, Daniel, I kept trying to remember, laughed at the right moments and kept refilling my soda like a perfect host. But there were moments, like when our hands brushed at the fridge door. When he handed me a beer, fingers lingering just a little too long. Or when I caught him watching me from across the patio, eyes dark, unreadable. It wasn't what he did, it was what he didn't do. He didn't apologize again. He didn't bring up the kitchen. He didn't touch me in the wrong way. But he didn't ignore me either. That night, after Josh went to bed, I stayed up watching TV in the living room. Half a movie in, Daniel walked in holding a glass of whiskey, barefoot, in sweatpants again. That was becoming a pattern I was starting to resent liking. You good? He asked, sitting down on the other end of the couch. Yeah. Can't sleep. Same. Silence stretched out between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. The kind of silence that knew too much. He took a sip. I've been thinking. I looked at him. He didn't look back. About that night? I asked. He nodded slowly. I've been wondering what would have happened if I hadn't stopped. My throat tightened. You didn't stop. He smiled a little. You did. I didn't know what to say to that. His eyes finally found mine. It's not just a fling if that's what you're thinking. I wasn't sure if I had been thinking that. Maybe I wanted it to be one. Something easy to box up and forget. But his voice, his presence, it all made that impossible. I don't know what this is, I admitted. Or what you want from me. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees again. I want something real. But I also don't want to mess up your friendship with Josh. I know how this looks. I know the age gap. I know what people would say. Then why risk it? He stared at me for a long time. Because since that night, I haven't wanted anyone else. My breath caught. You barely know me. I know how I feel around you. That's not nothing. I wanted to believe him. But there were too many things unsaid. Too many variables. Too many ways this could go wrong. So I stood up, heart pounding. I should crash. He nodded, accepting it without pressure. There's a spare blanket in the hall closet. You can take the couch. I turned to walk out. Then stopped. Looked over my shoulder. You ever think maybe this isn't just about that night in the kitchen? He raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I think something started before that. We just didn't name it yet. This time he didn't smile. Just nodded. Maybe we're naming it now. The next morning was quiet. Josh drove me home. We talked about music, movies, nothing serious. He had no idea the look his dad gave me when I left. No idea how charged a single glance could feel when words weren't allowed to follow. But I knew. Whatever this thing was between us, it was still alive. And it was growing. Even in silence, sparks were still sparks. It started with a message. Just after midnight. A single text glowing on my screen. Daniel, can't sleep. You up? I stared at it longer than I needed to. My thumb hovered, my brain battling my better judgment. Me, yeah. You okay? 3 dots. Then nothing. Then 3 dots again. Daniel, rough night. Damien's out. You want to talk? Damien. His boyfriend. Or ex? I didn't ask questions. I threw on a hoodie and slid out of bed like I wasn't doing something reckless. Like I wasn't tiptoeing towards something dangerous. The street was quiet when I pulled up to his place, Josh's house, but Josh wasn't there that night. Visiting his mom across the state. I knew that when I agreed to come over. I pretended it didn't matter. Daniel opened the door with a tired smile, whiskey already in his hand. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. No effort to dress up. Just a plain white t-shirt and old jeans. He looked real. Vulnerable. Hey, he said. His voice was rough. Raw. I stepped inside, heart already kicking harder than it should have. What happened? We sat on the couch. He didn't answer right away. Damien's been cheating, he finally said. Emotionally, at least. Maybe more. I swallowed. You sure? He nodded. He got lazy with his phone. Text from some guy. Late night calls. He tried to deny it at first. Then blamed me. Said I've been distant. Said I'm always distracted. I didn't say anything. He looked at me with heavy eyes. He's not wrong. I broke the stare, suddenly very aware of how close we were on the couch. Why tell me? I asked. Why not a friend? A therapist? He gave a small, sad smile. Because you're the one I've wanted to talk to. Even when I shouldn't. Silence filled the space again. I didn't plan this, I said barely above a whisper. Neither did I. He reached out. Not aggressively, just resting his hand on mine. Testing the water. I didn't pull away. I think about you more than I should, he said. And not just physically. You make me feel like I'm not just going through the motions. I could feel the heat in my chest rising to my face. I hated how much I needed to hear that. I hated how right it felt. Josh would kill us, I said. I know. We're not supposed to do this. I know. He leaned in anyway. I didn't stop him. The kiss was soft. Hesitant. Like he was waiting for me to flinch. But I didn't. I kissed him back. Slow. Real. Everything burned. His hand slid up to my jaw, holding me there like I might disappear. When we finally broke apart, we just sat there, foreheads touching, breath tangled. This is insane, I whispered. I don't care. He pulled me closer. We didn't sleep together that night, not all the way. We kissed, touched, explored that edge. But something unspoken held us back. Not fear. Not regret. Respect. He made up the guest bed for me. Kissed my forehead before walking away. Not tonight, he said. Not until we're both sure. And I knew what he meant. I wasn't a rebound. He didn't want this to start as a mistake. I lay awake most of the night, heart racing. Replay after replay. His lips. His words. The way he looked at me like I wasn't just filling in for someone else. Like he saw me. The next morning, I found him in the kitchen, already brewing coffee. He handed me a mug without a word. Our fingers brushed. He didn't let go right away. So what now? I asked. He shrugged. We don't tell Josh. Not yet. And Damien? Packed up last night. He's gone. I raised an eyebrow. That fast. He knew it was over. I think he'd known for a while. He was just waiting for me to admit it. You okay? He leaned against the counter, watching me. I am now. I didn't say anything. I just sipped the coffee and looked at him, Realizing this was the first morning in a long time I didn't feel lost. Over the next couple of weeks we saw each other more, always quiet, always careful. Late night drives. Long talks in his car, parked just far enough from his place to avoid suspicion. Light touches. Stolen kisses. But it was real. Not rushed. Not secret just for the thrill. It felt like we were building something. And it scared the hell out of me. Because I'd never felt anything this fast or this strong. Because I knew we were still hiding. Because I knew Damien wasn't done with him yet. But for now, in those in-between hours, he was mine. And I was his. Whatever we were, however messy, however complicated, it was finally real. And I didn't want to let it go. I knew peace wouldn't last. Not with someone like Damien. Daniel and I had slipped into a rhythm. Quiet mornings at his place when Josh was away, late-night conversations that bled into sleep, his hand finding mine beneath the table when no one was looking. We still hadn't told Josh. I wasn't ready. Daniel said he understood. But Damien wasn't gone. It started with cryptic messages. At first to Daniel, blocked numbers, vague threats, "You'll regret this," kind of garbage. Then one night he messaged me. "Damien, cute. Replacing me with some college kid? You think he actually wants you?" I didn't reply. I showed it to Daniel instead. He sighed, rubbing his temple. "He's spiraling. Should we do something?" I asked. He shook his head. Let him burn out. But Damien didn't burn out. He got meaner. Smarter. Petty. He messaged Josh. That's when everything exploded. Josh called me one night, angry, panicked, hurt. His voice cracked through the phone. "Is it true? What Damien just told me? Are you seriously hooking up with my dad?" I stood frozen in my bedroom, heart in my throat. "Josh. Answer me." I didn't lie. "Yeah." Silence. Cold, suffocating silence. "You're dead to me," he said. "Don't ever ***king talk to me again." The line went dead. I stared at the phone like it might undo itself. Like maybe it had been a bad dream. But the guilt that came crashing down on me was very, very real. Daniel came over that night. For the first time, it was my space. "I'm sorry," I said the moment I opened the door. He pulled me into his arms. "Don't be." I didn't want him to find out like that. "I know." We sat on the floor for hours. No TV. No distractions. Just the consequences of what we'd done, pressing in from all sides. "I don't regret being with you," I whispered. "But I hate that it cost me him." Daniel looked down. "I know what it's like to be betrayed. Damien did it for months behind my back. But this, what he's doing now, this is another level." "He's not done, is he?" "No," he said quietly. "But neither am I." A few days later, Damien showed up at Daniel's house. Not to beg. Not to fix things. Just to throw one last grenade. "You're pathetic," I heard him spit. I was in the hallway, out of sight, listening through the cracked door. "You replaced me with some twink with daddy issues?" What midlife crisis wasn't dramatic enough? Daniel didn't yell. He didn't flinch. "You cheated," he said simply. "And I stopped loving you long before he came into the picture." "Oh please," Damien scoffed. "You think he actually cares? He's just playing the long game. You're a story to tell his friends." That one landed harder than I wanted it to. I stepped out into view. "Say what you want, but I never pretended to be someone I wasn't." Damien looked me over. Smiled cruelly. "You're just a warm body. You think he'd leave everything for you?" "I already did," Daniel said behind me. Damien blinked. "You're done here," Daniel said. "Take your bitterness somewhere else." He left. But not before muttering something like, "This won't end well." That night, Daniel and I sat on his balcony, watching the city lights shimmer in the distance. "Still think this is worth it?" I asked him. He looked over at me. "You?" I nodded. "Yeah. Even if it gets worse before it gets better. Then yeah, it's worth it." He kissed me then. Slow. Solid. With the kind of certainty that makes everything else fade. We'd been through betrayal. We'd lost someone we cared about. But we were still here. And I could feel something else taking shape in that space Damien left behind. Something stronger. Something real. Something that wasn't going to break this time. We didn't hide anymore. Not after Damien scorched every bridge he could. Not after Josh found out in the worst possible way. We were already living in the fire. There was no point pretending it wasn't warm. At first it was awkward. Daniel and I had to relearn what it meant to just be together. No stolen glances. No hushed tones behind closed doors. Just open. Present. I started spending weekends at his place. Sometimes weekdays too. We got used to brushing our teeth in the same mirror. He brewed the coffee while I made the toast. He played jazz in the mornings and I hated it, but I let it play anyway because he'd hum along in that deep, scratchy voice I was falling for. It wasn't perfect. Nothing was. People stared when we were out together, especially when he'd hold my hand. I was 24. He was 42. We didn't exactly blend in. We got side eyes. Judging looks. A few whispers in grocery store aisles that were just loud enough to be intentional. Once, at a small cafe near the pier, the server took our order like we were father and son, until Daniel touched my wrist and leaned close, whispering something that made me smile. The server's expression cracked. He didn't come back to the table. A manager did instead. I expected Daniel to be embarrassed. Instead he just laughed. I've spent too many years trying to please people who didn't even like me. I'm not doing that anymore. I loved that about him. How little space he left for shame. The bigger hurdle was Josh. Weeks passed. No texts. No calls. I didn't reach out and he didn't unblock me. I missed him in ways I couldn't even explain, like phantom pain in a friendship I hadn't realized was part of my body. Daniel never pressured me to fix it. But one afternoon as we folded laundry together, mundane, soft, he said, "You should talk to him. Even if it doesn't change anything. What if it makes it worse? What if it doesn't?" So I sent a message. I miss you. I know I hurt you. I'm not asking you to be okay with it. But I hope one day we can talk again. I didn't expect a reply. But a week later I got one. "Josh, still mad. Still weird. But I guess. I don't hate you." That was enough for now. Things with Daniel deepened. Not just the romance but the rhythm of life. We learned each other's quiet moods. I knew when he was stressed before he even spoke. He knew when I needed space without me asking. We cooked together. He taught me how to make real pasta, not boxed crap. We danced around the kitchen like idiots. Sometimes we ended up kissing against the fridge, giggling like teenagers. He was still dealing with fallout from Damien, messy mutual friends, an awkward meeting with his sister where he had to explain why he was suddenly dating someone half her age. But he handled it all with grace. And when things got too heavy, we took long drives by the coast, windows down, music up, pretending the world didn't matter. One night, after dinner and wine and watching some dumb nature documentary that made us both cry for no reason, I looked at him across the couch. "You think this is going to last?" He looked up from his glass, eyes warm. I didn't think I deserved anything like this. Not after the last few years. But yeah, I think it could. I shifted closer. "You ever scared we moved too fast?" "All the time. But then I remember how right it felt the moment I kissed you in that kitchen." I laughed. "The kitchen? That's how you're romanticizing this." "It's where it started. You literally grabbed me by mistake. And now I do it on purpose." He set his glass down, pulled me into his lap, and kissed me like we had nowhere else to be. We planned a weekend getaway. Nothing fancy, just a cabin near a lake 2 hours out of town. No cell service. No schedules. Just us. He drove. I made playlists. We argued about music genres the whole way up and kissed like we were 18 again when we got there. We swam in freezing water. Made terrible s'mores. Fell asleep wrapped in each other under a sky so full of stars it didn't seem real. It wasn't about the sex, though there was plenty of that. It was about being seen. Being chosen. Being known. We talked about the future. I asked him if he ever wanted to get married again. He didn't answer at first. Then, with the right person maybe? He looked at me like the answer was already obvious. And for the first time, I believed I could actually be that person. The day we came back from the cabin, Josh texted again. "Josh, still weird. Still processing. But if you're happy." I guess I'm happy for you. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. And I realized we were building a life not just despite what had happened, but because of it. Because we hadn't run. Because we'd stood in the fallout and found each other in the wreckage. That night, Daniel grabbed my butt again in the kitchen. Playfully this time, hands warm, laughter in his throat. "Still yummy," he whispered. This time I didn't freeze. I turned and kissed him like I meant it. Because now he knew exactly who I was. And he loved me anyway. Peace has a way of tempting chaos. Just when things felt settled, when Daniel and I were getting used to slow mornings and shared calendars, Damien showed up again. Not in person. That would have been too easy. Instead he went digital. A vague tweet. No names. Just enough detail to stir things up. Funny how some people like their love young, desperate, and willing to ruin friendships for a sugar daddy paycheck. Hope the rent's worth it. It caught fire faster than I expected. The queer gossip web is vicious and efficient. Screenshots circled. People talked. DMs trickled in. Some laughing. Some judging. One or two asking if it was true. Daniel was the one who brought it to me. I figured you should see it before someone sends it to you. He handed me his phone. His face was calm. Too calm. I read it. Laughed once, bitter and low. He's pathetic, I said. Yeah. You want me to respond? No. I'll handle it. He did. Not online. Not publicly. But quietly. With receipts. A week later, Damien's tweet disappeared. So did his petty comments. I heard through a friend of a friend that Daniel had sent screenshots of Damien's messages, the cheating, the gaslighting, the manipulation, to people who mattered. The ones Damien still wanted approval from. His game collapsed in private DMs and quiet block lists. We didn't gloat. We didn't need to. We went out for dinner that night. Some rooftop place Daniel liked. Fancy cocktails. A dress shirt he let me pick out. His hand resting on my thigh under the table like it was always meant to be there. You think he'll come back again? I asked. Maybe. You scared? He looked at me soft but solid. No. Because he's stuck in his own story. We're already living ours. That hit me hard. Because for so long I thought we were just surviving something. But we weren't. We were becoming something. Oh. Untouchable. Real. And no one, not even Damien, could rewrite that. We didn't need a dramatic ending. We'd already lived it. The betrayal, the silence, the scandal, the fallout, those were all part of our story, sure. But they weren't the whole thing. The real story started after. In the quiet. In the stillness that came once the noise died down. Daniel and I moved in together 3 months after Damien's last attempt to poison the air. It wasn't a big announcement. No Facebook posts. No housewarming party. Just my clothes gradually filling his closet and our toothbrushes living side by side. It felt natural. Like we'd already been doing this and the move just made it official. We didn't hide anymore. We didn't shrink for anyone. His sister came over one weekend and brought a houseplant as a peace offering. She'd been skeptical at first, understandably, but after one dinner where she saw us cook side by side, she softened. Even joked, "Wow, you're basically a married couple." Daniel raised his eyebrows at me across the table. I blushed and nearly dropped the salad tongs. Josh didn't reappear overnight. But slowly the silence broke. One day he liked one of my photos. A week later he replied to a story. Something simple. Nice shirt, loser. It was his version of extending a hand. Eventually we met up. Neutral ground. A walk through the park. He looked older somehow. Less angry. I guess I did too. I still think it's weird, he said, tossing crumbs to ducks. I know. But you seem good. And he seems different with you. Better. He is better. We stood in silence for a bit. Then he added, "If you ever hurt him, I'll ruin your life." I laughed. Fair. It wasn't the same after that, but it was something. And that was enough. Life with Daniel became a rhythm I hadn't known I needed. I knew which nights he got cranky after work and which ones he'd come home buzzing, excited to talk about a project. He knew when I needed space, when I was spiraling inside my own head, when I needed to be pulled out and grounded, usually with a hand on my back and a "you're not doing this alone." He was my anchor. And somehow I was his. We made Sunday breakfasts a tradition. Music playing, pancakes on the griddle, bad dance moves in the kitchen. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me like he couldn't believe I was real. Like he still remembered that night I'd walked into the kitchen half asleep and changed his whole life by accident. One morning as I reached for the orange juice, he slipped behind me and grabbed my butt. I jumped, laughing. Seriously? He grinned against my neck. Still yummy. This time I turned to face him. Wrapped my arms around his neck. No mistaken identity this time? Nope. Sure. Positive. I kissed him, slow and deep and sure. Because I wasn't a substitute. And he wasn't broken. And what we had wasn't a rebound or a mistake or a secret anymore. It was love. Messy. Unexpected. True. If you told me a year ago that a trip to the kitchen would turn into all this, I would have laughed in your face. But sometimes the biggest stories don't start with fireworks. Sometimes they start with water. And a touch that wasn't meant for you. And a moment that changes everything.